Hey, good day to everyone. In this episode of Growing Your Tree of Prosperity, I'll be talking a little bit about the cost of living in Singapore. And this is a special request from a JC buddy of mine because he feels that the cost of living issue is going to be a very big one for these upcoming elections. And he wanted me to really spend some time to talk about it, hopefully in my own style, right? In a non coffee shop kind of manner. All right. Okay, so let's begin. Cost of living is always been a concern for Singaporeans, and once again, it is a key election issue this year, right? But one might reason that cost of living is a concern for Singaporeans for all the elections that we've experienced so far. And frankly, folks I've met feel somewhat aggrieved by rising prices in Singapore. And I have here on this slide the how much you need to pay for kaya toast, right? Sorry, for a cup of coffee. And the price for a kopi O has gone above $2 in some outlets. So one question that people have is, does this really justify punishing an incumbent government when the cost of living has really gone out of control? And this is something I've poked some of my friends on the ground, especially people who run businesses. They feel under pressure. They feel under pressure not just from rising personal costs, but they feel under pressure from increasing rents as well as increasing labor costs, right? So this is something that is going to be a big issue for this election. All right. In order to talk about the cost of living in Singapore in a non-kopitiam kind of manner, we should first give ourselves a lesson on inflation, right? And inflation sort of measures the price changes for a basket of goods. And this is the weightage of the basket of goods from the SingStat website. As you can see, they've tried to estimate how much a household spends on various components, right? And you see that the largest component is housing and utilities, followed by food, and then followed by transport. Okay? And do take note that these weights may not correspond to your own personal experience. I have a friend who argued that the CPI isn't accurate because it doesn't contain an iPhone, for example. And I said that the fact of the matter is that my own personal expenses do not contain an iPhone because my family uses Android mobile phones. Okay, and so do take note that the CPI is based on weights for household. That is an estimate of what households spend. They may not correspond to your own actual experience. Okay, all right. And how has inflation been doing that? Inflation actually was very high in 2023, above 4%, and then it decreased sharply in 2024. And it's decreased even more in the beginning of this year, right? Now, at this point of time, I should remind everybody that for most of the listeners who are listening to me, you are in your mid-30s to your mid-40s, right? And you find that for people in this age category, the inflation that you experience, your personal inflation rate, is about 1 percentage point higher than the CPI. This is something that financial planners have found for middle class, middle income people who are middle aged, right? And this is because you have higher aspirations year after year. Maybe this year you travel to Japan. The following year, with a larger bonus, you travel to Machu Picchu in South America, for example, right? This is because you might be at the time of your life where you can enjoy some travel because you're making more money than your 20s. And so you make sure you live it up as per normal. And so do take note that your aspirations is often much higher than the CPI rate. Now, if you reach your 50s like me, I find that my cost of living has actually gone down because I can no longer relate to the way Generation Z is playing my Dungeons and Dragons hobby, right? And I'm also going through the process of becoming a cranky old man. And in that process, maybe my mind is no longer as open-minded to really enjoy the stuff that young people do, right? Like I've only been reading about Coachella. I don't know what that is. Apparently young people like to go to Coachella. It's very, very expensive, okay? yeah, for me, I would count myself lucky that I can open my Spotify app and listen to whatever song I want to listen to. Okay, yeah, so naturally, my cost of living has gone down, right? But the good news for many Singaporeans is that in 2023, the wage growth has been over 5%. It's been beating inflation. And in 2024, it continues to be high at 5.8%, and there's real wage growth. Okay, so whatever increase the risk to your cost of living is offset by the increase in wages, right? But provided you are an employee, if you're an entrepreneur, you run your own business, you find that the rent and the labor costs have gone up, and you need to raise prices in order to offset that. All right, so that's a huge challenge, right? It's a huge challenge for a lot of businessmen. Has the government done anything? Right? If inflation rate has gone down, is there anything that the government has done earlier to actually create such a situation back home in Singapore? So I went back to look at MAS records. They have in fact anticipated inflation in 2021 and 2022. So they've raised the policy band quite early. They've strengthened the Singapore dollar so that imports have become cheaper. And they were rather successful in doing that, if you think about it. If they had not done so earlier, inflation in 2023 would have been much worse. Right? Would have been much worse. But do note that right now the MAS has been lowering the slope in recent months, which means that they sort of anticipate some kind of recession or some sort of economic threat in the near future. And that's not surprising given the Trump tariffs. Okay, so we should be grateful, right? Not for the current government, but for MAS, okay, for actually taking a lot of steps to keep our cost of living as reasonably low as possible, right? Okay, and that's all I have to say. In every election, bread and butter issues will always reign supreme, so this cost of living concern will naturally form a key part of voter dissatisfaction. Okay, the question is whether an alternative government can do better. Okay, and that's something for you to decide. It is your vote. I respect you, whichever party you vote. All right, and I'm not going to think that a simple 10-minute video is going to change your political inclination. Right? Now, several points to remember. That even if inflation goes to zero, it just means that your costs remain flat. Right? The cost of running a business, the cost of doing anything, it's not going to go down, because if it goes down, it means deflation. And that's something that government wants to avoid. All right? So you cannot allow the cost of living to drop. Okay, and often when the cost of living drops, it comes with widespread job losses and retrenchments. All right, so a recession is probably upon us when that happens. Okay, and I think we shouldn't really allow whichever government to be in power to sort of affect the quality of our lives. So I think it's actually better to take control of your own expenses to reduce your own cost of living. So what I've done is I've gone through all the subscriptions that I have, and I've eliminated most of them, all right, to reduce the amount that they take away from my passive income. All right, that's actually passive income you pay to other people. If you're willing to get your family to make a sacrifice, like give up on the family car, it could mean $2,000 of extra money that you can deploy into maybe more travel in your life. All right. So with that, all right, we've come to the end of my presentation for today. All right, how to support me? You can start by subscribing to this channel if you like my content. You can also sign up for my free early retirement masterclass course preview by Googling ERM intro and taking the first link. Or you can follow the link below to buy me a coffee. All right, try to keep this channel as sponsor-free as possible so that I continue to give neutral as well as objective material on my future YouTube adventures. And with that, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon for my next video.